What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be ranking every single dungeon from worst to best. If you guys do enjoy this type of video and enjoy videos like this, please remember to leave a like. It shows me that you enjoying the content and you like to see videos like this. But yeah, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Alrighty, so now coming in at number 13, we have Desert Temple. Now, obviously this is their first dungeon, so I can't be too hard on them on it, but yeah, it's just very boring and bland. Like, all the armors are super bland and boring. All the dungeons boring, really bland. There's not really great detail. Like I said, I'm not going to be too harsh on them, just because it was their first dungeon. If I was them, I would maybe revamp it a bit and make it look a bit better now, because now they're obviously much better at making dungeons. I think they should revamp it, and because it's the first dungeon people play, and it's definitely the first impression, so you want to make it good. But yeah, definitely not my favorite dungeon. Again, I'm not going to be too hard on it because it was the first dungeon, so obviously it's not going to be fantastic. But all in all, just kind of a boring, bland dungeon. It's definitely not the favorite. That's why I have it at 13. Alrighty, moving on to 12, we have Winter Outpost. So Winter Outpost, once again, I can't give them too much hate for this one. It was, again, their second dungeon, very early off when they were creating dungeons. So obviously they're not as good. They weren't as good as making dungeons as they are now, but still one of my not as favorite dungeons. It's kind of dark. It's kind of gloomy. The armors they don't look great. The legendary is okay. The mobs are kind of boring. All in all, it's just kind of like a dark. The details aren't great. The aesthetics of the dungeon are not up there. So all in all, this dungeon it's not great. It's okay. Yeah, you know, it's a good dungeon, but definitely not up there in the top 5. Alrighty, so coming in at number 11 is Steampunk Sewers. Now, this could be a controversial one. I know a lot of people love this dungeon. A lot of people hate this dungeon. I don't hate the dungeon. It's just not my favorite. I don't know. I don't love the feel of it. Now, this could just be me. If this is your favorite dungeon, I'm sorry. It's just not my favorite dungeon. I don't like the armors. I don't like the way any of the armors look. Like, you literally look like an oven. I don't love the legendaries. The legendaries are meh. And the cosmetic, I don't like the cosmetic from this dungeon either. And then the overall feel of it was just kind of boring. I mean, it was just kind of boring. It wasn't anything crazy. They did do a good job on the details of the mobs. I thought they did good with that. That was about the only thing I thought they did good with this dungeon. Like, I mean, I don't want to give them too much hate, but I didn't love this dungeon. If this is your favorite dungeon, guys, I'm sorry. No hate to it. It's just not my cup of tea. This is just my preference and where I'm ranking the dungeons. If you guys have different preferences on where you would rank the dungeons, let me know down in the comments, because I definitely want to hear where you guys would rank. Now, I could just have a vendetta against it since I had terrible luck on this dungeon, but we won't think about that. Alrighty, moving on to number 10, we have Underworld. This one is dark and gloomy. If you guys know me or you watch any of my streams, you would know that I don't love the dark and gloomy dungeons. They don't have a great vibe. I don't know. I don't like them. Obviously, I know it's a dungeon, so it's not meant to be all happy and rainbows or whatever. But I prefer more of the outside dungeons that have like bright, vibrant colors that really bring out like aesthetically pleasing details of the dungeon. And if the dungeon is super aesthetically pleasing, it makes it so easy to grind. That's why I like this new dungeon so much, because it's very aesthetically pleasing. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's very nice. So yeah, but the Underworld, it is none of that. It is what it sounds like, the Underworld. Like I said, this is one of the earlier dungeons as well. So obviously the quality of it isn't way up there, but it's all in all just an okay dungeon. The mobs are okay. The dungeon in itself is meh. It's dark, it's gloomy. It doesn't look like the graphics and everything aren't great. As for the armors and swords, I don't mind. I actually like the cosmetic from this dungeon. I will give it that. It does have a nice cosmetic, for sure. The cosmetic is definitely nice. As for the legendaries I don't really like from this dungeon. I don't know, they just kind of look kind of weird. The only thing I really liked that came out of this dungeon was the cosmetic. That was really about it, but everything else I'm like meh about, so that's why I have it at number 10. Alrighty, coming in at number 9, we have King's Castle. Now this one, it's just an okay dungeon, really. I'm not a fan of any of the armors that come out of here. I'm not a fan of the cosmetic. The legendaries are okay. The legendaries, that's one thing that aren't bad. I don't mind the legendaries from here. The overall dungeon and the look of it is okay. I get what they were trying to go for, and they did a decent job, but it's just, I don't know. It's not my cup of tea when it comes to a dungeon. Obviously, great idea, great concept, and I'm not hating on any of these dungeons. All the dungeons are well made and a great addition to the game. I'm just ranking them from what I love and my favorite dungeons to the ones that I don't love. So but this one, definitely, it's okay. It's not my favorite. Like I said, the mobs are okay. The look of the dungeon is okay. I don't like the armors, the legendaries. I do like the cosmetic. I don't really like the cosmetic from this dungeon. So yeah, all in all, it's just an okay dungeon. That's why I have it at number 9. Yeah, I mean, I think number 9 is definitely the perfect spot for it, because I don't know, I don't see it going any lower. Alrighty, coming in at number 8, we have Pirate Island. Now this one, I like the feel of this dungeon for sure. I love the outside feel of it. I definitely get what they were going for in this dungeon, and they did a good job with it. I personally like this dungeon. The mobs are cool. The one thing that I weirded out about this dungeon is that the final boss is like a weird demon. Like, I think they were going for like a demon pirate or whatever, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't even look like a pirate. So, you know, when I was expecting to get to the end of this dungeon, I was expecting like a giant pirate lord or something. Even like a ghost pirate lord would have been cool. But it looks like a demon. It looks like I'm killing something out of a haunted house. It definitely doesn't fit. So that's one of the reasons why it's here. The mobs, like I said, are okay. The cosmetic from this dungeon is cool. I like the cosmetic from this dungeon. Yeah, I mean, it's all in all a decent dungeon, but I don't think I could put it any lower on the list. Yeah, it was one of their first dungeons, and some of the quality of the dungeon is not there. Like, a lot of the armors out of this dungeon is just meh. The abilities are okay. Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm happy with that at number 8. Alrighty, moving on to number 7, we have Volcanic Chambers. So yeah, Volcanic Chambers is an okay dungeon. I did enjoy this dungeon. I enjoyed streaming this dungeon, but it kind of just feels like another revamp of the Underworld. Definitely a nicer version of the Underworld. That's why it's higher or lower than the Underworld, but I don't know. It's not my favorite for sure. Definitely not my favorite. It kind of has a dark and gloomy vibe. Like I said, I don't love that vibe, and it's okay. I think the cosmetic from this dungeon is okay. The armor from this dungeon is okay as well. Like, everything about this dungeon is just okay. The map is okay. The dungeon is okay. The swords are okay. Like, there's nothing that I'm like, I don't like, but there's nothing that I like, you know? It was just kind of an okay dungeon in total. So that's why it is at number 7. Alrighty, moving on to number 6, we have Aquatic Temple. So this one is an interesting one. I wasn't sure where to put this one. I had a lot of fun streaming this one. Thinking about playing it and stuff, it's not my favorite. I don't love the cosmetic that comes out of this dungeon. It's okay. As for the map and everything, the map is okay as well. Like I said, this is a lot like Volcanic Chambers. Honestly, to me, when I started playing this felt like a watery blue version of Volcanic Chambers. That's just what it felt like. It didn't really have anything crazy. It was okay. Definitely an okay dungeon. I mean, I did enjoy streaming it. That's why it's higher than Volcanic Chambers. I definitely think I enjoyed streaming this one better than streaming Volcanic Chambers. But yeah, I mean, the cosmetic is okay. The actual armors and stuff I do like from this dungeon. I also really like the legendaries from this dungeon. That was another thing that was high up there. I like the legendaries from this dungeon. That's another reason why it's number 6 on the list. They were okay, and all of that. So yeah, all in all, it was a decent dungeon for sure. Alrighty, guys, before we get into the top 5, I want you guys to go down in the comments and let me know which dungeon do you think is going to be number 1. We have 5 dungeons left to go, and these are my top 5 favorite dungeons. So yeah, let me know which one you guys think is going to be number 1. Alrighty, coming in at number 5, we have Orbital Outpost. Now, this was actually a really fun dungeon. I enjoyed this dungeon. I know it kind of goes against the dark and gloomy vibe that I was saying. I don't love that it's kind of dark and gloomy, but everything else I love. Love the armors that came out of this dungeon. I love the legendaries that came out of this dungeon. And all in all, it was probably one of my favorite dungeons to stream. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. The hype around it when it came out was huge because there was a big gap in between Steampunk and Orbital. So it was awesome when this thing finally came out. It was a lot of fun to stream. I like the length of the dungeon as well, and the mobs and everything are really good. I do like the mobs. So everything around this dungeon is really, really good. I like everything in the dungeon. Like I said, the cosmetic is really the only thing I'm like, it's okay. Everything else about this dungeon, I actually really like. The mobs, the look of it. Like I said, I don't like that it's inside and like kind of dark and gloomy, but honestly, I don't mind the look of it. Like, I mean, I get what they were going for, and I like kind of the orbital, like, spaceship vibe that they went with. And I definitely think it looks good. Definitely high up on the list. I think it very much so deserves to be number 5 and in the top 5. One of my favorite dungeons for sure. Alrighty, coming in at number 4, we have Ghastly Harbor. Now, this was one of my favorite dungeons for sure. You guys know that I love Ghastly Harbor. I love streaming this dungeon. This dungeon was so much fun to stream. And yeah, there's just a lot to it. The detail of the dungeon is great. I mean, there's just so much to look at. There's ships everywhere. You're on a dock. I'd imagine this probably took forever to make. And it has the outside feel. I love the outside feel of the dungeons. Any dungeon that is outside is instantly a win for me. I love the outside feel of the dungeon. Definitely one of my favorite dungeons. I love the armors that came out of this. The cosmetic, I do like the cosmetic that came out of this. The cosmetic is decent. And the legendaries that came out of this, I do like. They're kind of simple, but they're cool. I mean, I definitely like them. I definitely like the way that they look and everything. And as for the mobs look great as well. I love the bosses. All the bosses fit. The one boss that I have an issue with is the third boss. So the middle, but not the third one, the second boss. It's right in the middle. And it doesn't look like it fit. Just like the pirate boss, it doesn't look like it fits. It's like full of like purple armor, and it looks like it should be in like a castle or somewhere different, not in Ghastly Harbor in the docks. I'm assuming it might be a reskin of a different boss. I don't know what boss it would be a reskin of, but it doesn't look like it belongs there. Like the other two bosses, they 100% look amazing. They belong there perfectly. I think a pirate or a salesman or something, I think something would have been, something like that would have fit better there. That's really the only issue I have with this dungeon, is that boss doesn't really fit there. It looks out of place. Every time I fought it, I felt like it didn't belong there. Other than that, it's honestly a great dungeon and one of my favorites by far. Alrighty, coming in at number 3, we have the Canals. Now, Canals, a lot of people like it. I really don't know anyone that doesn't like Canals. Canals is just overall a favorite in the Dungeon Quest community. It was a fun dungeon. I love the outside feel. It was a very aesthetically pleasing dungeon. All in all, it was just a good dungeon. I like the legendary. It was a simple design for the legendaries, but it would look good. I love the armors. The armors look good. They all in all great armors. The mobs look good. All the mobs fit. That's a big thing. All the mobs fit. They all look good. They all look like they belong there. There's no random boss that just didn't look like it belonged there. And all in all, it looked great. Everything about this dungeon just kind of fit together, and it came out to be actually a really, really nice dungeon. So that's why I have it so high up on the list. And I also love the cosmetic that is out of this dungeon. I'm still working on getting it. In fact, I've spent multiple hours in this dungeon trying to get the cosmetic, and I can't seem to get it. But I do like the cosmetic that comes out of this dungeon. I would say it's probably one of my favorite cosmetics for sure. But yeah, moving on from Canals and moving into our number 2 spot, we have Enchanted Forest. Now, this one just came out. It's obviously the newest dungeon, and they did such a good job with it. It is very bright, vibrant. It has a great feel. It feels like an enchanted forest. There's no bosses out of place. It's all in all just a great dungeon. They did a really good job with it. They haven't released this good of a dungeon in a while. It was Aquatic Temple, Volcanic Chambers, and we were like getting okay dungeons. For the past couple dungeons, they've just been okay. So for them to come out and release a dungeon like this was absolutely great. It was great for the game. They did a really good job with it. It has kind of the outdoor feel. And a great vibrant feel to it. All the mobs are great. The only thing that is like meh about it is the armors. I don't love the armors in this dungeon. It's okay. It's really just like the best armors. They're okay. They kind of look a little weird. And the cosmetic looks stupid. I'm just gonna be straight honest. The cosmetic looks dumb. But other than the cosmetic and the armors, this dungeon is a win for the Dungeon Quest community. It definitely is a great dungeon. I love the legendary looks. The legendaries look great. Did a really good job with the design of the legendaries. All in all, a really, really well-rounded, good dungeon. If they keep doing dungeons like this game is going to continue to be successful and not die. Alrighty, and coming in at our number 1 spot, we have Samurai Palace. Now, obviously, this is my favorite dungeon by far. The aesthetics of this dungeon are just insane. They look great. It's got the outside feel. It's bright. It's vibrant. I love the legendaries from it. Even though the legendaries are simple in this dungeon, they look good. They look good. That's what matters. They look good. They fit the dungeon. There's no boss in this dungeon that is out of place. They all look like they belong there. It's more of a shorter dungeon, but still, I like the shorter dungeons. And yeah, really, really a great dungeon. I love the mobs. There's nothing I really dislike about the dungeon. I really think I like the look the best. The look is definitely the thing that makes it win for me. And I enjoyed playing this dungeon. I enjoyed playing this dungeon a ton, grinding out all the armors. I like the armors too. It was all in all just a really well-rounded made dungeon. I think if they release more dungeons like this, I think it would be really good for the game. I don't know, Samurai Palace 2. I mean, I would be down. I think if there's any dungeon that I would like to see a remake in, it would be Samurai Palace. Alrighty guys, and that concludes my rankings of dungeons. I hope you guys did enjoy, and let me know where you would rank your dungeons and what is your favorite dungeon and what you would put as number 1. Obviously you guys know my picks. Let me know what your picks are, and if you guys want a part 2 of this where I rank all the dungeons from you guys' picking, let me know. I'll definitely do that. That sounds like something that could be really fun. But yeah, again, thank you guys all so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, guys.